Hello, for today's collective worship, I'm going to read a story from the Bible, and it's called The Boys Who Like to Say No. And I'm going to link this at the end to one of our St. James values of respect. So here's the Bible story. God was very sad. Most of his people had stopped listening to him and talking to him and following his rules. Change your ways, God warned them, or you will have to leave this special land I gave you long ago. But the people wouldn't listen, so God let their enemies defeat them and destroy their cities and carry them hundreds of miles away to be slaves in the land of Babylon. There were, however, a few of God's people who did not forget him, and among them were 4 young friends, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These boys were clever and strong, so Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, decided to treat them well. He gave them soft beds, rich food, and an education at his very best school, all in the hope that they would forget about the land they'd left. But Nebuchadnezzar hadn't reckoned on them being the boys who liked to say no. King Nebuchadnezzar's chief servant was put in charge of turning these boys into good Babylonians. For dinner tonight, he announced, you will have the following choices from the king's own menu: pink pork sausages, plump pork chops, and perfect pork pies. The king's food looked good, but Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew it was made from something that God's rules said they shouldn't eat, the rules they'd learnt in their own land, the rules their God had given them, the rules and the land and the God they had promised never to forget. So they turned to the king's servant together, and they said, no. So here are the boys refusing that food. So they turned to the king's servant and said no, and the king's servant couldn't believe it. No pink sausages, he asked. No, said Shadrach, but I wouldn't mind a few carrots. No plump pork chops? No, said Meshach, I'll just have a green salad. And not even one perfect pork pie? No, said Abednego, but some beans would be lovely. The king will be very angry, the servant explained. If you do not eat this food, you will grow tired and ill, and then the king will punish me. Won't you change your mind, please? No, said Daniel, but you will not get into trouble, for we will not grow tired and ill. Tell the king that we wish to have a contest. For 10 days the 4 of us will eat nothing but vegetables and water. The other boys in the palace can eat your food, and then we shall see who is well and who is not. The servant agreed, and so did the king, and for 10 days the boys who liked to say no said no to everything but vegetables and water, while the other boys ate their fill of the king's food. What happened? The God who Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would not forget did not forget them. At the end of the contest, the boys who liked to say no looked healthy and strong, much healthier and stronger than the boys, in fact. So from then on, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were allowed to eat whatever they liked, all because they were loyal to their God, and because they were the boys who liked to say no. So I've got a couple of questions about that story. What happened to Jerusalem after the kings all stopped obeying God? Can you remember? What did God do? The kingdom was destroyed, Jerusalem was destroyed, and all the people were taken captive. Who were the 4 young men who were chosen to live in the palace? Can you remember their names? There was Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. What was the only kind of food and drink the boys would have? They would only have vegetables and water. So what I'd like you to do today is think about the respect that those boys had for God, and then think about how we can respect our own bodies. Can we say no to things that aren't healthy or good for us? What I'd like you to think about is healthy snacks or healthy foods, and maybe you could draw me a plate of a healthy meal, and you could load that onto Seesaw. And also think about doing some exercise. We've all been told to do exercise during lockdown because not only does it help our bodies, it helps our minds as well. So I want you all to make sure you get out and about once a day, and also think about respecting your bodies with the physical exercise and also with what we eat. So I look forward to seeing your lovely healthy plates of food that you're going to draw, and you could label those too.